Welcome back to Miles Reads. I'm Miles. The book we're discussing today has an interesting title, The One-Page Financial Plan, a simple way to be smart about your money. Hearing that, you probably have a good idea of what it's about. And I trust that we aren't in the remaining 1%. Everyone desires wealth. The legendary wit and British author Oscar Wilde once said, "When I was young, I thought that money was the most important thing in life. Now that I am old, I know that it is." More than 100 years later, his words still ring true. Everyone understands that money is important. But when it comes to managing it, all you hear are groans because it always feels too complicated. As a result, most people just clutch their money tightly, only daring to keep it in a bank account. The reason is simple. They think managing money is too complex. But the book we're looking at today is here to tell you something different. Personal finance isn't complicated at all. In fact, your entire financial plan can be simple enough to fit on a single page. The author, Carl Richards, is a financial planner with over 20 years of experience. He founded his own investment management firm and is also a columnist for publications like the New York Times. You may have heard of his other classic in the field, The Behavior Gap, which you can find on our Book a Day channel if you're interested. This time, drawing on his extensive experience, he has proposed the one-page financial plan, which is the core of this book. Richards discovered in his career that too many clients gave up on financial planning simply because it sounded too complex and involved too many choices. So he decided to write a book to make the whole process radically simple. A single page is enough for your financial plan. Doesn't that completely upend what we thought we knew about personal finance? Next, we'll dive deep into the world of personal finance from two perspectives: how to create your financial plan and how to invest. Some might say, isn't financial planning just investing? And successful investing isn't easy. The author says that's the wrong way to think about it. The starting point for personal finance isn't investing, it's figuring out what you truly value and what you're pursuing in life. To put it more philosophically, it's about clarifying your values. Once you have that, the rest of the planning and execution will fall into place naturally. How do you do it? You just need to create a one-page financial plan. How simple is this page? It only includes 3 things. First, why is money important to you? Second, an estimate of your financial goals. Third, the debts you need to repay. Let's start with the first question. Why is money important to you? Answering this question gets to the heart of the matter, clarifying your core values. With that foundation, creating and following your financial plan becomes a natural process. Why is money important? Of course, money is important. You need it for everything. This question might sound a little strange, but it's this deceptively simple query that can reveal your deepest desires. This step is as crucial as a doctor's diagnosis. Think about it. If you went to a hospital and the doctor wrote a prescription without even examining you, would you take the medicine? The proper diagnostic process involves asking detailed questions about your condition, running necessary tests, and only then prescribing the right treatment. Personal finance is the same. Figuring out why money is important is like giving your financial situation a health checkup. One of the author's clients, a star doctor and partner in an emergency response team, a classic successful woman, once sought his advice. He started by asking her this very question: why is money important to you? After some thought, she answered, freedom. Freedom is a great answer, but it's also very broad. So the author pressed further. What does freedom mean to you? Flexibility. And why is that flexibility important? To have more time. Assuming you had more time, what would you most want to do? Finally, the client said, I really want to have a child. The answer surprised even her. It seemed she had only just realized how important having a child was to her. In our fast-paced, high-pressure jobs, we often don't have time to listen to our inner voice, or perhaps we're afraid to face it. The first step in creating your financial plan is to recognize what is truly important to you. Your plan must align with your values. A financial plan isn't a complex strategy from Wall Street, it's a custom-tailored product made just for you. Ask yourself what truly matters most. When you have a burning passion deep inside, it becomes much easier to say no to other things and avoid being distracted by what's unimportant. Now, You can take out a piece of paper and start your one-page financial plan. The very first thing to write down is the answer to, why is money important to you? Next is the second step. Estimate your financial goals. For this step, remember the most important point. The future is full of uncertainty, so you can only make a rough estimate. Most personal finance books will teach you to set short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. But this book tells you that's completely unnecessary. Life simply doesn't happen according to our plans. When it comes to the future, what we fear most is uncertainty. However, you must accept that full of uncertainty is the normal state of life. As John Lennon said, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. Creating a financial plan is a bit like planning a trip. Frequent travelers know that a travel itinerary should never be too rigid. If the schedule is packed too tightly, one small mishap can throw everything into chaos. A better approach is to set a destination, list a few must-see attractions, and leave the rest of the time for spontaneity. Whether it's for travel or finances, we have to learn to get comfortable with uncertainty. Bravely admitting, I don't know what the future holds, can actually be liberating. Of course, while you don't need a detailed blueprint, you do need a general direction, just as you need to know your destination for a trip. This brings us to our second step, estimating the financial situation you hope to achieve. In the first step, we clarified our values. In this second step, guided by those values, we can set a few important goals. Don't worry. These goals aren't set in stone, they can be adjusted as your life changes. Maybe your goals right now are a new BMW in 5 years, a trip around the world before you're 45, and retiring by 60. How much will each cost? Let's estimate. A BMW 5 Series might be around $500,000, a world trip about $1 million, and to retire at 60, let's say you'll need $5 million in savings. Go ahead and write these goals and amounts on your page. With that, we've completed the second step. Now for the third step, figure out how much debt you have. The best illustration of your financial situation is a balance sheet. You should create one for yourself. Why do so many people not have a clear picture of their finances? Is it because it's hard? Perhaps it's just because they don't want to face it. You don't want to think about the financing plan for your new iPhone, the credit card debt from the Black Friday sales, or the 20-year mortgage you took on for a home in the city. However, if you don't have a clear understanding of your financial situation, you'll never reach your goals. This isn't hard to do. Whether you have a background in finance or not, you've heard of a balance sheet. What we need to do is create your personal balance sheet. Take a blank sheet of paper and draw a vertical line down the middle. On the left, write down your assets, such as savings, the market value of your property, investments, etc. On the right, write down your liabilities, like your mortgage, car loans, credit card debt, etc. The total of your assets on the left minus the total of your liabilities on the right equals your net worth. Not so hard, is it? Now write your total debt on your one-page plan. At this point, your page has the 3 key elements we discussed: why money is important, an estimate of your financial goals, and the debts you need to repay. This page is your financial plan. It's that simple. Remember, this page is more like a blueprint photo than a thick instruction manual. If you've ever built a Lego set, you know each product comes with a manual telling you what to build first. But to check if you're building it correctly, you ultimately look at the picture of the final product on the front of the box. This one-page plan is the same. By checking it from time to time, you'll know if you're moving forward or if you've strayed off course. Now that you've established your values, found your goals, faced reality, and created a financial plan, is it time to learn how to invest? No, it's still too soon. Before investing, there's one more important thing: understanding where your money comes from. For that, we need to look at spending and saving. First, let's look at spending. You can only start building wealth by making a budget and cutting unnecessary expenses. There are so many things to spend money on in life. You can't skip groceries, and you have to pay the mortgage and car loan. The new iPhone is out, the latest mirrorless camera has new features, and Louis Vuitton has a new limited edition bag. Have you ever been swept away by the flood of new products? How can you stay clear-headed? The answer is an old-fashioned one: make a budget. How do you make a budget work? You need to track your expenses. By tracking, you'll discover that your actual spending is completely different from what you feel you spend. You'll be amazed to find out how much money you spend on things that aren't important at all. By comparing your tracked expenses with your budget, you can decide which costs to cut and save more money. Of course, we're not doing this to criticize ourselves, but to improve our self-awareness. You might think you don't spend much on coffee or that you only buy 2 or 3 bags a year, but after tracking, you may find that's not the case. Perhaps you'll realize you're spending too much on bags money that could have been your travel fund. Once you find what needs to change, you can better align your actions with your values and financial goals. Remember, this is all about increasing financial awareness, not about judgment or guilt. Next, let's look at saving. What you need to do is create a savings plan that works for you and start immediately. You may have read in various finance books that savings should be a certain percentage of your income. But because everyone's values and lifestyles are different, there is no one-size-fits-all standard. Since you've already created your one-page plan, you should be able to determine the savings level that's right for you. This level is related only to your goals, not to expert recommendations. Then you should start as soon as possible. Whether you're in your 20s or 30s, regardless of what's happened in the past, you need to start right now. Young people today are certainly under a lot of pressure. In your 20s, you're busy paying rent. In your 30s, you're burdened with a mortgage. It's a struggle. In fact, a study showed that nearly half of all Americans couldn't come up with $2,000 within 30 days for an emergency. It's a stark reminder of how widespread this challenge is. Even if you feel like you're behind on your goals and have wasted too much time, don't count on getting rich overnight to catch up. That's highly unlikely to happen. What you need to do is start saving now. Alright, now that we've covered where the money comes from, we can finally look at how to invest. The entire investment process involves 3 parts. First, should you buy life insurance? Second, do you have any debts to repay? Third, and most importantly, distinguish true investment wisdom from speculative fever. Let's start with the first point. Should you buy life insurance? There's only one core rule. If someone depends on you financially, you need it. What does depend on mean? Consider a married couple where both have stable jobs and no children. In this case, if one person were to pass away, the other could still support themselves with their own job. That's not dependency. But if they had a child, or if the surviving partner didn't have a job, that would be dependency. Many people don't like to talk about insurance. They think it's bad luck. But since we're discussing personal finance, as rational individuals, we must set aside emotions and measure the actual financial loss. Let's say you need insurance. How much should you buy? That depends on the size of the financial loss. This loss includes not only the deceased person's income, but also the impact on the surviving partner. For example, if the deceased earned $100,000 a year, and the surviving partner's income drops by $20,000 because they now have to care for a child, the total family loss is $120,000 a year. How do you translate this loss into an insurance amount? A simple method is to apply the 4% rule. Take the annual loss we just calculated, $120,000, and divide it by 4%. The insurance amount you'd need is $3 million. Now that we've covered life insurance, let's look at the second point. Do you have any debts to repay? If you do, there's only one thing to do. Pay off the debt first. Paying off debt is the best investment. There's a great saying, those who understand interest earn it, and those who don't pay it. What does that mean? Let's look at an example. Suppose you have a 20-year mortgage at a 5% interest rate. Now, draw a circle on a piece of paper and write 5% inside it. Next to the circle, draw a box. What annual rate of return do you think you can get from investing? 8%? Okay, write 8% in the box, but add a big question mark next to it. Now for the multiple choice question. You have one option that is a guaranteed 5% return by paying off a 5% loan, and another that is a completely uncertain investment with an expected return of 8%. Which should you choose? The answer is obvious. Because investment returns are full of uncertainty, paying off high-interest debt is an excellent, risk-free, high-return investment. Okay, now for the final and most important point. Distinguish true investment wisdom from speculative fever. Everyone's understanding of personal finance is different, But there's one thing it's easy to agree on. Everyone is thoroughly disappointed with the stock market. Yet, when you mention finance, many people still think of which stock to recommend or which industry is hot right now. You've probably heard stories like this. Someone gets a so-called hot tip from a friend of a friend's cousin, saying a certain stock is about to soar. So they throw all their money, even borrowed money, into that one stock. And the result? How many people have you heard of who actually got rich this way? During the tech stock boom of the 1990s, the author himself couldn't resist and spent $10,000, a huge sum at the time, on a tech stock. But the boom quickly faded, and his $10,000 investment ended up being worth only $81. Looking back, the overall market index was rising the whole time. So what went wrong? Why did investors lose money even when the market was up? The reason is that they confused investing with speculating. A little personal knowledge about an individual stock is far from a guarantee of returns. In investing, there are only 3 principles you really need to remember. 1. Diversify your portfolio. 2. Keep costs low. 3. Risk and return are always related. Diversification is that old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Why are low costs so important? Investing is full of uncertainties. Changes in fund managers, corporate ownership, policy shifts, declining performance. Any small factor can affect your final return. But there is one thing that is certain and unchanging: costs. For example, a typical stock mutual fund might have a management fee of 1.5%, while an index fund might have a fee of only 0.1%. The choice is clear: go with the low-cost index fund. Everyone should understand the relationship between risk and return. No pain, no gain. To get high returns, you must take on high risk. In other words, if you want to make big money, you have to be prepared to lose big money. These 3 are the basic principles of investing. So we know the principles, but how exactly should we invest? I'm sorry, but there really isn't a one-size-fits-all plan. You know why? Everyone's needs are different. So a financial plan must be tailored to the individual. But if you absolutely must have a general guideline, there's a default allocation used by institutional investors that has been proven over time, and it might work for you: a 60-40 split between stocks and bonds in your investment portfolio. This default ratio of 60% stocks and 40% bonds will likely earn you a higher return than most people. What's more, you must stick to this ratio by rebalancing once a year. Simply put, let's say you have $1,000 to invest, $600 in stocks and $400 in bonds. A year later, the stocks have grown to $700, and your golden ratio is broken. What do? Sell some stocks and buy bonds to restore the original 60-40 ratio. What if the stocks fall? Then do the opposite. Sell bonds and buy stocks. Once you have a well-allocated portfolio, all your work is done. Now you can sit back and enjoy the rewards. It's true. Don't be too busy, you need to be a little lazy. The interesting thing about investing is that the less you do, the better your results often are. The legendary investor Warren Buffett once said, "Our favorite holding period is forever," reflecting a style of inactivity that borders on sloth. Investing is like planting a great tree. All you need to do now is rest in its shade. After all this, do you still feel unsure about personal finance? Don't worry, that's perfectly normal. To put your mind at ease, I'll leave you with 2 reassuring thoughts from the author. Keep these in mind, and they'll give you the courage to act. First, the problem isn't as bad as it seems. You might feel terrible right now with no house and no savings, but it's actually okay. Take a deep breath. You always have a chance. Second, we are all in the same boat. Everyone's situation seems different, but in reality, we are all pursuing similar things: happiness, security, and stability. That's the main content of the one-page financial plan. Let me quickly recap for you. Your entire financial journey has 2 main steps. First, create a one-page financial plan. Second, invest in the general direction of that plan. You can constantly adjust the contents of this one-page plan as your life changes, but its core components will always remain the same. Write down what money means to you, your estimated goals, and the debts you need to repay. These items will be your lighthouse, guiding you on your investment path. You need to spend less and save more to have capital to invest. The first step in investing is to consider whether you need life insurance, then pay off high-interest debt. Finally, you must be a rational investor, sticking firmly to the principles of diversified, low-cost value investing. If you can do all that, I'm confident you can achieve your financial dreams. That's all for this book today. Congratulations, you've finished another book.